Hello, this is Robert Guderian, and today we are talking about strings and string formatting and how we can communicate results to a user. Now that we are not just using computer programs, we actually have a sense of we are the computer program and we need to present our results to someone else. So you'll see this a lot in programming and programming languages and being a programmer, is that eventually a human will want to look at your output. Or you, as the programmer, might want to look at the output to try to figure out if there's bugs in here and to make sure that things are working properly. So you'll see these a lot. We are going to use the print function, which is print in smooth brackets, meaning that we're calling some code. Print is a function that is written for us, that we don't have to write, and that we just have to know how to use it. And there's actually a lot of depth to print. We're going to stay pretty light and just saying whatever you put inside those smooth brackets in print will just show up in the console. There's two ways to do print formatting. And there is an ancient printf style. This is with the C programming language, which is older than me, give or take, and it works inside of Python. And if you want to use it, that's fine. I'm not going to say no. It's built into Python. And in the end, it works, and that's fine. If I will be using format, which is the new Pythonistic way of doing it. Yes, that's a thing. That's a word that people use. And there's a certain style to write with Python, and if you're writing in that style, it's called Pythonistic. Every programming language has a few different ways to do things, and working with a language is a lot better than working against a language. I'm going to tell you that right now. So what is a string? I've thrown around this word around a lot. Other languages have a different primitive. So we talked about two data types last class. We talked about ints and floats. Those are both numbers. So how do we get a sentence? How do we print words? You saw me print words. We printed hello world. Well, there is a sense of letters in computers. They're actually represented as numbers, but we don't really want to view it that way. You can, and it's helpful to do that sometimes, but in general, you don't want to do that. So other programming languages and your computer will see letters as numbers, and there's something called an array, which we will cover eventually, which is basically a set of many of the same type of number. So we can consider a word like hello a set of 5 letters, and each of those letters is a number, and that is going to be a string of letters, or a string of chars, a string of characters. Well, Python doesn't really have any of that. That's some background. It still works that way, and we can still use strings in very interesting ways. But for us, right now, a string is a sentence. It is text. We can store numbers as text. We can store them of 5, and we can put those in quotes. You can see I just did that automatically. Strings must be wrapped in quotes. So these can be single or doubles. If you're being Pythonistic, it's a single. That is not something that I'm going to enforce in this class. Don't worry. So this is how we do it. You can have single quotes, hello world, double quotes, more hellos, or triple quotes, which can span lines, which can be useful if you want to have multiple lines and you have this big, huge thing you're doing. And we can store these in variables. And you can see in the slide, that's what I did. It was some kind of words is equal to something. And you can see that we talked about variables. I'm capturing this string inside of a variable. So that variable, words, once I hit play button, is going to be holding something. Neat. That's good. That's what we want. That's what we were looking for. We can also print this out. Print words, which will, what? Put this into the console. So it's going to look up what the value in words, which we know here is something, and then it's going to print that to our console. It says something down here. Okay. So you can try all these out, and I encourage you to do that. You can just stare at this and passively say, okay, that works. It's a really good idea to just sit down and try it. type it out, use your fingers, don't just copy and paste it. And we can also put a string in here. We can use single quotes, so we're Pythonistic. And say, I'm trying to not write hello world. My fingers are doing it, it's not me. Oh, I spelled it wrong there, now it's cool. And there we go. One thing you'll notice is there's something called the new line added to the end of this. When I say print, it's going to print that out, and it's going to hit the return button, which will return us to the next line. There's a way to get around that. Eventually, we might show you that. You can actually, if you're being very astute, very, very astute, you can find it in this text pop-up. Oh, where is this one? There we go. It's trying to help me, right? And how to write these things out and have it continue on a line is there. That can be something you can look at if you're very curious. It's not something that is course material right now. That'd be if you're really keen and want to work ahead a little bit. And if we just want to print a blank line, we can actually just say print. We can say print the end. That's our very short story. And when we run it, it's going to say something, hello world. It's going to print out a blank line because I have that print with nothing in it. And then it says, quite happily, the end. Okay, great. They're the triple quotes for multiple lines. That's handy sometimes. I used it today for the first time in probably a year. So that's hey, this works and this is helpful, but you're probably not going to use it. Okay, so now we know how to write strings, but we want to do something a little bit more fancy. If you've ever used Word to a very good extreme, you may have found something called a mail merge, where you can have a bunch of placeholders. You've probably gotten mail merge emails in the past where it says, hello, your name in all caps. Thank you for subscribing to some credit card. We welcome you to this company. And they don't know how to use it right because they put all of the words in all caps. So you can tell where they just kind of slotted the words in. We can do that. It's actually trivial. So we're going to basically recreate a Mad Lib. And what we'll do is use placeholders to slot in our words. And it looks like this. And this is the format style. If you're using printf style, it's different. And, skip ahead, just go off, read that on your own. I don't care. For all the rest of us, hello. Let's talk about print formatting. So I want to have some placeholders. So I'm going to say, I'm seeing my name is, and then I'm going to put in a placeholder. And if I just run this verbatim, it's going to say my name is brackets. Oh, okay, well, that didn't work. Well, we need to slot things in. So this is where that format keyword comes in. And here, this is the first time we're going to see something called object orientation. You don't have to know that right now. We're going to talk about objects right at the end. But what we have here is a call to string object. And objects are special in that they have data and methods to work with that data. So when I say dot format on here, what that's doing is saying this string object has a format function that I can call, and it's going to use these placeholders, these funny braces that I put in here, and it's going to slot this data into there. Okay, well, let's try this. I'm going to do this all inside of my print here. Dot format, and it probably will help me. Nope, never helps me when I think it will. What's my name? Bobbert. Somebody that I don't know who's watching this video is going to walk up to me in the hall and call me Bobbert. Just watch. There you go. Cool. I've slotted that in. Oh, that's neat. I have two names, would you believe? So I can say Bobbert Guderianopoulos, which is what my friends call me because I have weird friends. And now you can say my name is Bobbert Guderianopoulos. Go me. Well, we can actually do a little bit better. we can have multiple format placeholders, and these will get slotted in order. So you're thinking, well, how is that helpful? Well, let's just see it. So I'm going to put in another placeholder, and then I'm going to make these into two different strings. And I'm going to put a comma between them. So the first term here is going to get slotted into my first placeholder. My second term here is going to get slotted into my second placeholder. Okay. And it worked. Go me. But this does give me extra flexibility. I can say of the family. And then I can type in kind of whatever the heck I want here. And that placeholder string will still work, and it'll still slot things in. And I don't need to have my placeholders side by side. So now we can see my output is, my name is Bobbert of the family Guderianopoulos. Good. That's what we want. Now you can imagine writing a whole mail like this, where you're going to say, if it would say, hello, first name, last name, you'd probably have a database, which is just a big Excel spreadsheet, and say the first row is Bobbert Guderianopoulos at a certain address, and then you can slot all of that into a big, huge string that has all these placeholders. That's how a mail merge works. Don't look at mail merges. They're terrible. They're very useful. This is not a computer usage class. I'm not going to make you use Excel. Okay, so this is good, but can we use variables? So this is really breaking down this into pieces. And I'm going to break down my code into a few different pieces now. So I want this string, which is too long and doesn't fit into this line anymore, partially because I have my text at like 1,000 font. I'm going to have my string, and I'm going to name it mail merge. There we go. And then I'm going to say formatted is equal to mail merge dot format. And then I want to put in my formatted string. Hey, it's helping me. That's nice. Into here. Will this work? I hope so. Hey. So you're thinking to yourself, isn't one line better than 3 lines? And sometimes that's true. In this case, I think this is easier to read, where you're like, this is my format string, and I'm going to save it in here. And you can see over here that indeed that is the string that's being held. So then when I call this variable, is going to look and say, okay, mail merge is this, and I'm a string, so I can call this format function on my string. And it's going to slot these terms, these are called arguments, into my format string. So it's going to look at my format string, which is stored in mail merge, the mail merge variable, and do all this slotting in stuff and store that in formatted. And I'm going to get an email, and then it'll print out formatted, which will look up the variable that is inside of formatted, and it'll say, my name is Bobbert of the family Guderianopoulos, and then print that out. So that's how we do it. It looks like more work, but it's clearer and it's more general. Like this slide here, eventually we will look up data sets, and then we're going to read in a whole line, and we could have a mail merge, and I wouldn't have to change this line of code. I would just have to have a loop, which we'll cover next week, that will go through the entire file and read in a first name and a last name, and then do the format. Read in a new first name, last name, and do the format. Because the idea here is that we solve this problem once, and then we can add in any other data for us to be formatted for us. And we don't have to redo the format string stuff, because that's hard work. Assigning variables, easy. Doing the format string, hard. Do the hard work once and never again. So we formatted a string. We want to print it out. You actually saw me do this already. Capture in a variable and then print it out. So this is not too surprising or new to you, but it's in the slides, which is nice. Super broken down. I love it. The last thing we're going to talk about is growing strings. So if you have multiple strings floating around and you want to join them together, there's a few ways we can do that. Well, we just learned format strings. We could use that. fine. But we can also use just the plus, which is really actually super handy. I'm going to do this in my console here. I'm going to put in a name, and I'm trying to think of something clever. I should have like a list of clever names beside me, but I have nothing. So we're going to have Leela, and then I'm going to store that in a variable named first name. Or no, that's her last name. And the first name is, Turanga. I may have spelled that wrong for anyone who's really keeping up. So now I have these variables floating around. You can see them inside of my variable explorer here. First name, last name. And I want to have a whole name. I can just say first name plus, then a space between them, because it doesn't, well, I'm going to leave off the space first, and you'll see it go wrong, last name. And I still need to print this. So whole name is equal to Tarangalila. Not quite what we want. We're so surprised. It's like I tipped my hand there. So I want to put a space in between, which is actually 3 strings getting added together. So it's the first name, which is a string, and then a string that is a single space, and then a string that's the last name. And it's called append them all together. And then I'll store it in whole name, and then I can mash the up button until it spells out Tarangalila for us. So that is the basics of just handling strings and using variables. This is a good example of just storing things in variables and trying them out. In class, we'll do a Mad Lib and be a little bit silly and have fun. And I'm looking forward to playing with strings with you then. Have a good day.